Hello and welcome, this is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to share some easy die cut cards using the new composition dies from Lisa Horton Crafts. I have composition G as well as compositions H here. And the great thing about these die sets is they have a ton of different and unique dies in each set to create a bunch of different cards. They also have insert cards in them giving you ideas on some of the different layouts and some of the different designs you can use when using these die sets. I'm going to do a card from each one of these. I'm not going to do the designs that are on the front or on these cards. I'm doing something a little bit different, so it gives you a little bit of extra inspiration. I've used some of these composition sets before in a previous video, and I'll link that at the end to give you some ideas for other sets. But you can take these die sets and just really get fun and creative with them. Look at these cards. It just shows you how many different dies are in each one of these sets. So you can get a lot of different pieces out of them, and they're all very unique. So for my first card, I'm using composition set G, and I'm going to create a square card. The final size of my card is going to be 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches, and the main square frame that's in this die set fits easily on that card size. There's a few square dies in this set that have some stitching detail around them, and I have a piece of white cardstock here die cut with the largest one of that size. There's also an insert for the main like decorative square piece that you can use to die cut, but I chose to take that square die cut and emboss the image of that die in there. It just gives you another way to use it and just a little bit of a different look. It almost looks like an embossing folder, but because it is that same shape, it's meant for that size. For both of the cards that I'm creating today, everything was die cut in either white cardstock or black cardstock, and I'm using some Color Shift ink pads to color them. For this first card here, my leaves are colored with Summer Sky and Avocado Gold. The Avocado Gold is the darker of the two colors, so it's giving it a little bit of shading. For my florals, I'm going to be using Golden Heather, which is this purple color, and also Fruit Punch, which is the pink tone. So I'm starting with the purple color on the inside of the flower, the center of the flower. The Fruit Punch is going to go on the outside, the tips of the petals, and I'm doing it for both the solid flowers as well as the kind of die cut like edges to the flowers, if you will. These Color Shift pads, if you've never seen them before, I've done a previous video with them, and they're very similar to the interference ink pads. I have, for both of them, I have playlists, so I use these pads a lot. The Color Shift ones are newer. They are a creamier ink. They're a little bit easier for blending, so this was the perfect choice for this particular project because I wanted to blend the two colors into each other. The ink is a hybrid ink, so it's a little bit creamier than the interference inks. In one of my previous videos with introducing the Color Shift pads, I compared the interference with the Color Shift inks. The Color Shift inks just stay wet longer. They're easier to blend. The interference inks dry a lot quicker, and they're just a lot more difficult to blend together. So for blending two different colors together, I definitely prefer these for that. If you're just wanting to do them solid colors, the regular interference pads will work just fine for this. I just like for the simplicity of the cards that I wanted with the black and white background, I wanted the color to come from inking with the ink pads. Now these Color Shift pads have shimmer to them similar to the interference pads, but the shimmer is a little bit more subtle because of the creamier ink formula. So it really just depends on the look that you're going for. So for these florals, at first I started taking the outline, the black outline for the flower, and putting it directly on top of the petals. And then with the second flower, I thought it might look interesting to shift it, so I opted to shift it on the first one as well. That's one of the bonuses of using liquid glue, is you can change your mind, and regularly I do that while I'm creating. I have a different idea while I'm creating, or something might not look exactly how I envisioned it, so I want to change it up a little bit. For the leaves, I just glued the outline piece directly on them. So my black and my white centerpiece here, I'm leaving them as is. You could take these interference inks and color them too if you wanted to give them a little bit of shimmer. For the black cardstock, it's going to have a different look than the white cardstock. So that's the beauty of these Color Shift pads. They're like two pads in one, and I like to call them magic pads. I do with my interference pads, I call them magic pads all the time. They have two different properties to them. One is the color they look on white or light cardstock, and then they have a completely different look on black or dark cardstock. So it's just a really fun way to play and create with your inks. So those two base pieces that I put onto my base of my card, I'm leaving those regular black and white cardstock. I didn't want to add any interference to that. I thought it would look a little bit more interesting to have black and white elements and then my colored flowers. There's also a hello die in this set as well as a banner. I did that for the sentiment. There is a center to that. Oh, I kind of lost it while I was die cutting and I thought it might look a little bit more interesting without having it. But if you want to have the center to it, you absolutely can add the center to it. Anytime I'm using floral dies, when the design of the floral die allows, I like to use my fingers to curve the petals just to give them a little bit of natural dimension. I glue just the center of the flower down. It also makes it really easy to tuck those flowers inside or underneath other ones. Now, if you want those curves of the petals to have a little bit more structure or support behind them, you could always use some foam pop dots, and they come in a bunch of different widths, so you can find one that is the right width for you. I typically just leave them as is. These type of cards are ones that I would generally hand to someone. I wouldn't necessarily put them in an envelope to flatten out. To add just a touch more sparkle to the centers of my flowers, I'm just using some Stardust Stickles. It doesn't have any color to it. It just is a clear glitter glue with some opalescent glitter to it. So it's going to brighten up the ink underneath there, but once it dries, it's just going to add some sparkle to the center of those flowers. So I stuck those aside, that card aside to dry, and I'm going to do my second card. And you can see how quick and easy these cards are to come together. It really actually took longer to do my die cutting than it did to assemble and ink the cards. So that's why it's so easy and quick to create with these die cuts. And because there's so many different pieces in there, you could just come up with all sorts of different designs. I'm not using every single die cut in the set. You certainly could if you wanted. I'm just using two of the outer or the biggest size, which is the background piece. I don't really know what shape you would call that. And then 2 layers for that inside piece that I just laid down. There is 3 layers for each one of them in the set, and you could absolutely add a 3rd layer if you wanted to. I wanted to just stick with black and white because I really wanted the colors from my florals to really pop. So for this particular card, I'm using Watermelon Spritz and Coral Waters for my flowers. And I am doing ink blending not only on the white die cuts, but also on the black ones. I want to see that tiny little bit of shimmer and that little bit of color shift. Because the black pieces aren't really big here, you're not going to see a ton of color on them, but you are going to see some shimmer. So the color that I'm using right now is the Coral Waters, and you can see that we have a coral color. It shows up on the white cardstock here. If you look at the pad, you see the bottom right corner has blue on it. That's the color that's going to show up on black or dark cardstock. Darker cardstock, you're going to get a tiny little bit of the color that shows up on the light. Just depends on how dark your cardstock is. When it comes to just black cardstock, you're only going to see that alternate color there. For the leaves for this one, I'm doing the same as my last card. So the lighter color here is Summer Sky, and then the darker color is Avocado Gold. So I'm focusing on the way the colors are going to look on my light or white cardstock here, and those are the main colors that you're going to see when you're looking at my card. Even though I've done that ink blending on the black outline, all you're going to really see is a little bit of the shimmer. You're probably not going to necessarily be able to tell what the actual color for the outline of these leaves are, simply because the outline is so fine that it's just going to give you a tiny little bit of shimmer and a little bit of contrast to the color for those florals and for those leaves. So once I have those ink blended, I can put the centers to the flowers. There's 3 different size circles here for the centers of the flowers. Once again, I'm just using that liquid glue. I always love using liquid glue because it gives you that little bit of extra wiggle time. I have mine in a nice fine bottle so I can use it for really tiny die cuts as well as just assembling my cards together. As you can see, this die set has a smile sentiment for it, so I'm using that to go with this card. You could easily take several different composition die sets and mix and match the pieces in them. I didn't want to do that for this video. I wanted to just do 1 card per set and just show a different option from the idea cards that are in them. But I absolutely love that there are idea cards in them. It's perfect for people that are new to card making because it takes some of the guesswork away. You can take one of those designs and you can just get creative with your cardstock colors. And once you're comfortable with using one of the designs as inspiration, then you can get creative and start coming up with new designs for yourself. So I glued my base pieces onto a white card base. So it's just an A2 card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And then I start gluing on my colored die cuts. Now I must have had a tiny little bit of green ink on my finger because I got it on the card base right on that right side there that I was rubbing and I was kind of pointing out. So off screen, I cut the back of the card off of this piece and I'm just going to trim it down to get that green part off. Now I wanted to keep my background just black and white, so that's why I want to cut this off and make sure that I have that green smudge totally off. In the end, I actually really like what happens with this. I cut this down to 3 7/8 by 4 1/8, and then I cut a black piece 4 inches by 5. Sorry, I said 3 7/8 by 4 1/8, but I meant 5 1/8. This black piece here is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and then I will glue this piece on. So it ends up framing the background of the card as well, and it ties in really, really well with the black accents of the card. I didn't want to take my main piece and cut it even smaller than that because I was worried about getting odd spacing for my mat, but I really like that black outline. It just adds something to it. So sometimes when you make a mistake, or in this case an inky fingerprint, it's a really good opportunity for some creative problem solving. Sometimes you're not going to necessarily love the results. You'll like the previous design better, but sometimes in a case like this, it'll turn out really well and it will finish it off even nicer. So once I have that down and my mat down, I can glue those flowers down. Originally I had the largest in the center, the smallest at the bottom, and then the medium-sized one at the top, but I ended up swapping them. I want that medium-sized one at the bottom. It looked a little bit too top-heavy with that medium-sized one at the top. I'm going to put some stickles in the centers of the flowers here as well. The other card I did kind of covered the center. Here I'm just doing dots of stickles, so it gives it a little bit of a different look. It's also going to take a lot less time for it to dry because it's just tiny dots. So here it is once it's dry. It just adds some beautiful sparkle to the center of the flowers, and it just kind of draws your eye there. Like I said, these flowers do have that shimmer to them because of those color shift inks, but they're just a little bit more subtle than the interference inks. Interference inks kind of have over the top shimmer to them. It's really dominant. Here it's just a little bit more subtle, but I love the fact that we can blend colors together again. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. I hope you have a fantastic day.